All right, can everybody hear me? All right, good afternoon. Woo! I'm so excited. All right, so welcome to the AIM Ideas Lab presentation for Monterey County. It's our second year doing this. I'm enthusiastic to share with you all some of the strides we've been making when studying youth mental health here in our community. The AIM Ideas Lab is a youth participatory action research project. Say that 3 times fast. It's helped our participants learn how to conduct research while simultaneously making efforts to create a more focused, better understanding community when it comes to the topic of the mental health of our youth. My name is Talon Dinser, and I'm a senior at Carmel High School. I'm fortunate enough to share the stage here with my fellow panelists today. If everybody could just go down the line, introduce themselves, and say why they wanted to join AIM.
Hi, my name is Melanie Gonzalez-Fuentes. I'm a junior at St. Louis High School, and I participated in AIM Ideas Lab last year. I didn't do this symposium, but I thought that this year it'd be a good experience for me to try it out this year, and I think it's pretty important to be aware about mental health, I guess, and just have it's especially within youth, since it's very much overlooked by a lot of adults, especially parents.
Hi, my name is Melissa Macias. I go to North Monterey County, and I joined the AIM Youth Mental Health Ideas Lab because, I went through my own mental health challenge, and I realized how important it is to better understand how youth are going about it and what I could do to support my community within it.
My name is Gia Panetta, and I'm a junior at Carmel High School. And I decided to participate in AIM Ideas Lab this year because I had done it last year, and I was really interested in what new research and data we could find this year. And I also think, kind of adding on to Melanie's point, that this is a really important problem for youth to take into their own hands.
Hello, my name is Elaine Marie-Salindo. I am a junior at Everett Alvarez High School. This is my first year with AIM, and I wanted to join in to learn more about youth mental health and how I could spread more awareness on campus and throughout my community.
Hello everyone, my name is Marwa Sahak. I'm a sophomore at Marina High School, and like a lot of the other panelists, I joined the AIM Ideas Lab last year because of a growing interest in mental health that started during the pandemic. And I came back this year to investigate further into concerns that we found from last year's survey.
Hello everyone, my name's Grant, and I'm a junior at Carmel High School. Like most of the others here, I also participated in the AIM Ideas Lab last year, and I'm doing it again this year since I just really needed to find out what happened throughout the COVID pandemic and how that impacted high schoolers today, 2 years after.
Can we get a quick round of applause for all of our panelists here today? Look at that. That's awesome. Okay, now let's go to the research questions. This is what we focused on when doing our lab. So the first one, what are the major mental health challenges youth in Monterey County are facing, and why? And the second one, how can everyone in the county help address youth mental health? To help us discover these answers, 34 Ideas Lab participants from 11 different high schools in Monterey County spent about 2 months learning about how to conduct research, creating a survey, fielding the survey to teens, and analyzing the data to develop recommendations to support youth mental health in the community. So first, let's look at our survey. The survey took about 5 to 10 minutes to complete. It was a combination of 17 quantitative questions and 2 open-ended ones. We collected demographic information like age, gender identity, and race/ethnicity. We questioned about youth mental health challenges and interventions. This was distributed from the course starting from February 15th to March 9th, 2023 via mediums like word of mouth, social media, text messaging, and select schools. It was fielded in both English and Spanish. All right, now that we know about how we did it, let's see the background of the participants that we surveyed.
So this year we had 567 respondents to the survey. It was twice as many as last year. As you could see, we had a pretty even number of respondents from each grade. When it came to the geographic location, we were able to get respondents from all over Monterey County with really good representations from South County and Salinas. This lets us know our data represents all the teens in Monterey County. In terms of gender identity, we had a wide variety of options for respondents to choose from to describe their gender identity in the way they are more comfortable. Having more inclusive options gives us the ability to draw more conclusions on the difference between genders and how we could be more supportive towards them. When it comes to race and ethnicity, our respondents were a majority of Hispanic and Latinx at 55%, then 23% white and 10% Asian, which reflects the demographics of the Monterey County. With these demographics, we were able to obtain a clear idea of the Monterey teens, as well as with the help of more choices to choose from, it gave us a more precise idea of who our audience is and how and what we could do to be more helpful to them.
Last year, respondents were only able to select one of the answers for when it came to race, ethnicity, and gender identity. And while one of the things that we saw last year as well with this year was that about 60% of the respondents identified as women, and we can kind of attribute this to some of the conclusions that we drew from men and their relationship with mental health. And with gender identity, respondents were able to select the identity that they most aligned with. So if they were transgender and gender nonconforming, they could select that along with the other identity that fits with them. And with race and ethnicity, the same question was asked, except they were given more diverse options, and also the option to choose more than one. So they could select multiple identities for whichever one they identified most closely with. So this was really helpful in identifying multiracial students and just for students or respondents to be able to choose the identity that most fit with them.
All right, great. So now that we know more about the identity of our participants, let's look at some of the results that we yielded from the survey. So first, what are the mental health challenges our respondents are facing?
So from our survey, we found that a variety of mental health challenges were facing teens in Monterey. Some of the largest ones were anxiety, social anxiety, depression, as well as low self-esteem or self-worth. Personally, I was a little surprised by the number of people that suffered from eating disorders or having an unhealthy relationship with food.
One of the things that we noticed was that seniors this year were experiencing the most mental health challenges. And now this is actually more interesting because last year on our 2022 survey, the juniors were the ones that were experiencing the most mental health challenges out of the other grades. And so at first we had initially hypothesized that this was due to junior year being known to be academically challenging and just stressful in general. But the fact that we saw that there were seniors this year around were actually being faced with we're facing more mental health challenges compared to the other years. Kind of led us it went against that initial hypothesis, and it was showing that maybe that this is not just about junior year being difficult, but rather what's going on with this class of 2023 who were last year's juniors and now are this year's seniors. And so we believe that this can be attributed to the large-scale impact of COVID-19 to the class of 2023, as these students before pandemic, they were pretty much freshmen. They were freshmen barely starting into high school. And then when the pandemic hit around the middle of their freshman year, so they couldn't even finish their first year of high school before they had to go virtual. And for many of the students, their half of their first year and including their second year of high school was online. And so this was like a barrier for them from being able to transition into high school. And immediately once the school doors opened again, people were able to come back in person, they were just launched right into their junior year, which is one of the most difficult years, just because it's when most students start taking AP classes and they start thinking about what colleges they want to go to, what kind of programs they want to take over the summer, those tests, SATs, ACTs, you have to start studying a lot more, and it's just one of those difficult years. And so the fact that these students just went from just right out of middle school, not even like half a year of high school, and then right into one of the most difficult years of their high school career, could be one of the most challenging things for them, as online years really did not feel like actual high school years, and so this transition for them could have been very difficult. And what we might be seeing is that these juniors are still facing these challenges in senior year.
Absolutely. As a junior myself, I can personally attest to the challenge, of transitioning from COVID distance learning to in-person in the high school. There was little time to adjust, and even just finding my way around campus to the classes I needed to go to every day was a bit of a hassle in the beginning. COVID definitely left a huge impact for teens in high school.
And I think that how we were able to see that the juniors from last year, who are now the seniors, as I said before, how they were the ones that are still showing that they're facing mental health challenges the most. It's a good reflection of just how that mental health just doesn't go away with time, and then just a challenge that many students it persists and it sticks with them because it's just not an easy. There's no easy solution, and so what these juniors and what these last year's juniors, this year's seniors are, it's a good example of how they're still facing many of the challenges that they faced last year.
All right, so now that we know a little bit more about the challenges that the teens of our community face, let's look at the top risk factors that can actually make them worse.
According to teens in Monterey County, these are the top 10 risk factors that worsen teen mental health. Aside from lack of sleep, negative home environments, pressure from parents or guardians, and family not acknowledging mental health issues were the next highest risk factors. One possible reason that we came up with as to maybe why families don't acknowledge mental health issues could be due to cultural differences. As you could tell from our demographics, Monterey County is incredibly diverse. A lot of the teenagers here have parents that grew up in a completely different cultural setting compared to the cultural setting here in the United States. And those parents might have never heard of mental health, or they might have had some problems with it, but they were told that it's unimportant and shameful to talk about. And as a result, when children of these parents try to come to these people with their mental health issues and they try to talk to them, the parents are more likely to dismiss their issues like it's nothing, or outright scold them for wasting their time on such unimportant issues. And I think for parents, without knowing the significance of mental health, they could seriously, unintentionally damage their child's mental health even more.
One of the difficulties that some students might encounter as well would just be cultures and families normalizing ignoring these mental health challenges and basically downplaying them. And then this can cause youth to not acknowledge what they're going through and their challenges that they're facing. And it kind of keeps them stuck in the mentality, in a mentality that they're being dramatic or too emotional, that mental health is a sign of weakness, and that they shouldn't embrace it, or not necessarily embrace it, but they shouldn't talk about it. That it's not a topic that should be talked about with other people, because it's just you're being dramatic, you're being too emotional. It's just a sign of weakness. Just grow up. So it's something that can really put youth down from talking about their issues or even acknowledge them. Some of them might not even be aware that what they're going through, just because they might think it's just like them being dramatic, too emotional. And so this just the way cultures and families handle mental health can be something that attributes a lot to this.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think this slide just overall kind of demonstrates how important family actually is in mental health. It's included in those top risk factors that teens think worsen mental health, which, might be surprising to some of the older people in the audience or some parents. But I feel like to Gen Z, and the younger generations, it's not exactly so surprising because of how different these generations are. I mean, we grow up in this culture of technology, of social media, of sharing, And this culture of sharing kind of has promoted the normalization of mental health issues and mental health illnesses, which are now seen as much more common in our generation, and they're very normalized. So for older people, what might once have been a weakness or something with a lot of stigma surrounding it, the younger generations don't see it that way. And so there's really no reason not to acknowledge when your child is suffering a mental health illness or bad situation involving their mental health, because to them, it's actually really common among people their age, and it's very normalized.
Yeah, definitely. I want to go off. I want to go on about what Gia said, that we grew up in this generation of technology where, according to the demographics, that pressure from social media and peers could also affect a teen's mental health. You know, with social media out there, there are like expectations that are put out to us that we have to look like that, we have to be like that, we have to eat like that. And it's like these expectations are laid out for us because of social media and technology. It takes a toll on our mental health because we feel like we all have to fit and be in one place. Although it creates a difficulty of not trusting others, and it makes them scared of not reaching out for help regarding their mental health. It encourages peers, like, for example, there's social media that's like, oh, stay away from drugs, you know, like, harmful, don't do that. But then there's also, like, when our friends and those that are around us do not talk about mental health, the thought of speaking about it becomes provoking.
I mean, I also agree. I think social media can be such a negative force, and I think it especially targets more younger people because, I mean, older people, they seem to make social media work for them. You know, they know their restrictions, they know exactly what they want to see, and they know when it becomes too toxic. But with younger individuals, we're too naive to really know the depths that social media can cause us in our lives. I always like to use myself as an example because I believe that sharing stories is so important. To really just give a greater perspective of mental health. And I was a victim of mental health myself. I mean, mental health. Oh, yes. Social media myself. I was young. I was 12 years old. And at that age, I developed anorexia and body dysmorphia. And I struggled with it for 4 years straight. This was solely because, I can honestly say it was just solely because of social media. I saw other women's bodies being portrayed in a very unhealthy manner. And I was very naive, and I thought that in order to fit into social expectations with my peers, to fit into the society, that I need to look a certain way and I need to be perceived a certain way by other people too. That was one of the biggest mistakes I could have made. But sadly, it seems like all youth are making this mistake as well. So it really just goes out to say that it's incredibly hard for youth to just stay so positive and healthy in an environment that is constantly being portrayed by negative social media. I mean, the way that I think about it is the moment that we wake up, we have the world at the touch of our screens. And the fact that teens are already going through so much, it's so hard to go throughout your day when you just touch your phone and you already see random Twitter comments arguing about things that don't matter, school shootings, mass everything. You're just getting bombarded with so much negativity. And I think that it could really further explain why so many teens deal with depression, social anxiety, body dysmorphia, eating disorders, and so much more.
Yeah, it's really overwhelming, the type of challenges that the teens of our community have to face, especially in regards to social media. So, in face of these issues, where do the teens go for support?
So, as you can see on the slide, the top source for mental health support for teens was their friends. And you may or may not know, but this is the same as it was last year. Teens are most likely to go to their friends for mental health support, and by quite a bit. And then we have parents and guardians, and no one in a close third. And then we have some other adults listed, as well as some online resources. Now, last year, no one actually wasn't an answer option. And this year, when adding it, I definitely don't think we expected to get such a high rate of responses saying that they wouldn't turn to anybody. I mean, 61% of respondents said that they're not likely to reach out anywhere for support for their mental health. And, some behind the scenes information is that no one was actually in the number 2 spot for a while. It was above parents and guardians before we got some younger participants like freshmen and sophomores. And, I think this really just shows how normalized and common a widening rift is between parents and children as children grow older and as they become teenagers and go into high school. But, this data really shows that we cannot have that widening rift. Like, parents and children cannot drift so much that it is actually affecting the resources that teens have when they're reaching out for help and support. And so I think that just shows that, this growing tension between a parent and a maturing child just really needs to be fought by both parents and their children. And then, so one of our open-ended questions on the survey was, if resources and money wasn't a problem, how would you solve the mental health crisis in Monterey County? And one respondent said, I would make parents go to classes to understand more about their teenager and become someone who they trust and not just someone who is taking care of you. And, I really think that sums it up. And then another interesting data point we see on this slide is similar to last year, anonymous hotlines and talk lanes, they rank very low. Teens are not likely to reach out to them. They are not going to find them very approachable. And, I don't think, even though we saw this same trend last year, I think we expected it to be a little higher with the rollout of 988 in California, making hotlines and talk lines and online support much more accessible. But, we didn't find that. And I think that shows that hotlines and talk lines, teens just aren't going to use them. They're not going to find them approachable or appealing. And right above anonymous hotlines and talk lines, we actually have online communities, which, I was very surprised personally that this ranked above hotlines because online communities have no specific purpose targeting mental health support or issues. But, in essence, they both rank very low. And that just shows that online resources are not likely to be utilized by teens. And, if I were a school administrator sitting in the audience and I heard this, I wouldn't necessarily stop promoting online resources because as we see, there is a small percentage of teenagers who are likely to reach out to hotlines and talk lines. But I think it really just emphasizes that we need a shift to focusing on in-person resources like counselors, wellness centers, and advertising those in-person resources that teens are actually going to use.
Yeah, definitely. Just going off on that, in the specific role of counselors, nowadays we see they're more focused on academics than the person. And the one thing that I always say is if you really want to help somebody in a specific area, you need to help them as a whole person first. So if we want to see that academic achievement, we need to help them first with their mental health in order so they could do all those things, And I personally think that counselors should play a more productive and active role in youth mental health. Going back to one of my own stories, I recently had to inform my school that I was going to be out for a few days due to a passing of a very close person to me. And I thought that they were just going to completely ignore it and just be like, okay, she's not coming. But instead, my counselor pulled me in and just told me, like, hey, I know this is a really hard time for you, but I want you to know that I'm here. And if you just want to talk about anything, I'm right here. Or if you want me to get you that mental health support, I want to get it for you. And I thought that was such a crucial aspect in her part because I was not planning on getting mental health support. I was thinking about it, but I was not ready to go out and reach out for help because it's so hard to do that. It's so hard to put all your life and all your problems on a person that you don't know. So building that active relationship with the student, I think would really help because you're introducing yourself to the fact that, hey, I want to be here and I want to be in your life and I care for you. If you ever need any help from me or any other person, I want to be that person that does that for you. And I think that could really help all these students use all these resources that we have in a more productive and active way.
Well, absolutely. When someone's going through mental health challenges, it's just so difficult to go out of their comfort zone and open up with a person who you may have never really interacted with. So for more than just counselors, I also want to add on that teachers as well. At schools, no one interacts with the students other than other students more than teachers do. Day in and day out, you see the same few faces for hours every week. And so I would like to encourage teachers out there to look out for students who may not be doing for so well. It's so powerful to go out and approach students who may be going through challenges, and knowing that, letting them know that you're open to talk to anytime for anything. It's a massive thing that you can do to benefit the mental health of teens in high school.
Yeah, and actually, a lot of the mental health help that I've received has actually been in school. And just the resources that the schools allocate can actually be very helpful, because that's usually where teens are most of the day. So what exactly can schools do to help support youth mental health?
So in addition to having supportive counselors and teachers, respondents said that also the ability to take mental health days could be really crucial to the mental health. According to the data, this was the top desired school intervention by 64% of our respondents. Being able to openly take a mental health without feeling ashamed helps normalize mental health throughout school and campus. And I think this one way that this could be available to the students is educating teachers and I'm so sorry. Like school staff and teachers that mental health is a real thing. It is not a mental health day is not an excuse to miss school because they feel like it. No, mental health is very important, and in order for us to go on with our days and do our schoolwork, we have to focus on ourselves first and make sure that mental health is our priority.
And I also think that it's important to emphasize educating parents and guardians, considering the risk factors mentioned previously that were related to family. If parents knew the significance of mental health issues, and if they knew how to properly support their children, there would definitely be more trust between them and their child would definitely be more likely to come to them for mental health support.
Yeah, so what stops us? What are the barriers that come between teens and getting the help that they need?
The number one barrier that prevents teens from accessing mental health support or reaching out for help is not knowing who to trust. And in my opinion, I think lack of trust underlies a lot of the other barriers as well. Teenagers are afraid to reach out for mental health support because they don't fully trust that they won't be judged, or they don't fully trust that their information would be kept private. And just in general, being vulnerable requires a lot of trust, especially when you're being vulnerable about your own personal issues related to mental health. And I think some ways for teachers, parents, adults in general to build that trust is to, one, just be as open as you can be. Just make it really clear that you're not going to judge them no matter what they tell you, and make it clear that you're not going to get them in trouble for whatever they say either. Another way to build trust with teenagers is to just maintain a relationship with them. Just check in every once in a while. And one suggestion I have for teachers to build trust with their students is to ask your students what they do outside of school and what their interests are. Just make it clear that you care about who they are as a person, and you care about that student, and not just how well they do in their class or what grade they have in your class.
Absolutely. I want to also emphasize, especially, that just how important a non judgmental attitude can be in terms of mental health. It's so difficult for people to open up about what they're going through, and it's extremely important for the person they're talking to let them know that they don't think any less of them. Especially in boys, we see that boys tend not to open up about their mental health because it can make them feel like less of a person by talking about what they're going through.
I could definitely add on to that. We see this graph that just asks the question, how important do you think youth mental health is? And we see that females believe that it's much of a very more important issue than males. And there's a lot of barriers, like not knowing who to trust, and they don't want their parents to know. But I honestly think that the big reason why this is happening is because of the cultural and social pressures that we put on males in society. Like Mara was talking earlier, cultures can really shape how a younger individual grows up. And I think in many cultures and in our society, we pressure men more to not express these more feminine features to them. And we've categorized mental health as more of a feminine issue, when in reality, it's not the case. And I like this quote that says, mental health doesn't have a certain look. And I feel like we've just paid more attention to the women in mental health than men, and we clearly see that they're more reluctant to talk about it. They're more reluctant to even say that it's an important issue to them, especially since we've surveyed and they said 72% of males fear being misunderstood, and 76% don't know who to trust. And I just think that it identifies that there's a lot more barriers with males and females in accessing mental health and talking about it.
Yeah, and even speaking as a boy up here, I cited this experience earlier today. One time I was hanging out with my friends, and nothing was really special except I was a little bit down, but I didn't really ask for help. I didn't talk to anybody. But then as soon as we got home, my friends got home, I received a text from one of them saying, hey, listen, I just wanted to check in if you're okay. I'm really bad with this emotional stuff and these feelings, so I just wanted to check on you. And I just think that really attests to how we can't verbalize it, is that it's kind of, we have to hide it away, so we choose to do it over a medium that doesn't require us speaking in front of other people, just through one-to-one conversation, because we just want to keep it away. And yeah. All right, so with that, we learned a lot. Panelists, what suggestions do you have for future research? What do you see happening with youth mental health research in the future?
I think it would definitely be interesting to look more into the significance of cultural differences on teen mental health, and to maybe further investigate what specific kinds of cultural expectations affect teen mental health.
Yeah, and I think that more research needs to be done into parent and child relationships. Like, this year we had a question asking about barriers to reaching out. But I would like to get more specific into barriers to reaching out to your parents, or barriers to trusting your parents with, personal and emotional information.
And going off our last slide, I would like to further just research more males' perspective on mental health, since we see that they're more reluctant to talk about it. So it'd be more interesting to see how they feel and how how we could get them to better talk about it.
I would like to be able to look at more into the impact of COVID-19 in teens in high school, and maybe even possibly other areas. But it would have been nice that if maybe there was like a 13th grade to be able to look at these seniors who are going to be graduating soon, to see how maybe they'll be able to how they're going into college and going to be handling their next year of their life. But how COVID really has impacted so many generations, including the elementary students, who some of them I've been told that don't even know how to write the alphabet correctly yet, even like 5th graders. And so I think COVID-19 has had just a huge impact on not just adults, but on like young generations.
Yeah, so that means that we're at the end here. I wanted to thank everybody for coming here today. I said this kind of earlier, but I don't want this to just be seen as a presentation. I want this to be a conversation. I want this to be something that we all interpret. It's not something you're just being shown. This data is something that, whether directly or indirectly, everybody has experienced. I want to just say thank you. I can see hope and I can see confidence that we can make a change. The future for teen mental health, which is our mental health, is bright. And then what does that, wait, sorry. Do any panelists, do you guys have any last words other like saying thank you? Anything else?
Well, I really just want to echo what Tylen said here. I want to thank everyone for coming to our symposium. Just a few decades ago, we can't really imagine talking about mental health so publicly and openly. And today we're realizing that it's one of the largest problems concerning our generation. Fortunately, we've seen really positive trends out here, especially with AIM. And I want to thank everyone for being here, for being part of the solution.
All right, thank you. Let's get one more round of applause. Oh yeah, and so now let's open it up. I think we have a few minutes for a Q&A. So yeah, our panelists here will answer any questions you guys have.
Anybody got a question? Question? Yeah.
Thank you all so much. I'm a therapist and also parent, and I think a conversation or maybe words of encouragement I just want to share is that there's a lot of expectations of parents too, and of the schools. And I think that if we can support each other, especially as parents, because a lot of these things that you guys are talking about, I think parents, if we don't have like a buddy system or encourage each other, the changes aren't going to start. So I think a symposium for parents would be great. But I think just really understanding that society and culture isn't supporting parents in this country to actually be present for their kids. And I think that's what's happening, the roots of it.
Actually, I want to add a quick comment really quickly. We actually had a question at one of our breakout sessions yesterday from also a therapist. And what she said was that we focus a lot on youth mental health, but this is actually the mental health of society. It's a part that everybody has to play. So I really do appreciate that comment. I really, truly agree with that. All right.
You guys are very inspiring, and you put in a lot of work. And I have a question. Oh, go ahead. Clapping. They're clapping.
Okay. Wow. Thank you.
So how many of you are inspired to go into the mental health field or research or further get higher education because of what you've been doing? Raise your... Oh, look at that. See? There's our future. There's our future researchers, and you guys are going to be so important for some of the changes coming down the pike. So keep up the good work and maybe follow up some of your students and see what they do longitudinally, your COVID people, and see how they do over the years. And anyway, just some ideas for future research. Keep it up.
Yeah. Just get around. That was nice. That was nice. Okay. All right.
I want to make a comment since I have the microphone. I was so perplexed last year when you found that the junior year, we had this conclusion with the junior year was spiked with all of the mental health disorders across the board, right? There were none that were, it was junior year, that green line last year. And now to see that line we concluded together, you guys talked about this, that it probably was because of stress of junior year. But to see that line shift to senior year was so surprising. Does that surprise you too? Those of you that were on last year? Yeah, did it? Yeah. Do you want to mention?
Yeah, I definitely, like last year, I was kind of very determined that the cause of juniors being so high was all the stress that's put on them. Like, I myself now, I'm in junior year, and I still find it interesting that seniors are the highest, and that's what we found in the survey. And, I think it really can all be kind of attributed to COVID, the fact that this one grade is just gonna, how are they gonna deal with these increasing mental health challenges throughout their lives? That was all caused by, a few years online with no social interaction or anything like that. I think that, hopefully we can follow them somehow and see how they end up and keep up with them, because it's very sad to see that data.
It's a testament to the value of your research and the value of asking the questions again. Yeah. Okay, someone else had a question. Okay.
I'm just curious because
we need to get this.
Wait. We gotta. Yeah.
I'm curious about how to make it easier for kids at school to get help when they need it. And as you said, it's their friends or their parents or nobody. And nobody is an answer that kids give a lot. So I have a couple of questions, and these are just random crazy ideas I had, but one of them is something, there is a group called Sources of Strength at some schools, where they're kind of like kids who learn about mental health and stuff. Do you think that kids would be comfortable going to that group of kids? So that's my first question. And then the other crazy idea was, I know that we have physical exams. What if there was a mental health checkup every year? Is that a crazy idea?
No, of course
Good
not.
idea.
I can answer the first part of your question. So, like, what would kids do to help kids? Like, how would they be comfortable telling things to each other? And I could say that I made my own club at my school called the PMA Club, which stands for the Positive Mental Attitude Club. And we've never had a mental health club at our school, nor not that many therapists either. So I thought, hey, what's the worst that could happen? I'm just trying to help them as much as possible. And I thought a lot of people were going to be reluctant about sharing their thoughts and their feelings. But in reality, I've seen such a big shift in all of them. They're more encouraged to speak about their problems. I remember I came out and said the first day about my problems with eating disorders and body dysmorphia, and all of them were like, whoa, we never heard anybody say it that loud, But now they're just like, you know what, yeah, I have this issue, and I'm not afraid to show it, and showing that can help other people. So I definitely think that youth can play a big help in supporting other youth, and programs like that can help.
And what do you guys think about like a yearly mental exam?
I truly believe that a mental health checkup every year is something that can help the students. It's like they could consider it as a break every year, that they don't have to stress about this academic exam, but there's this, they don't have to think of that exam, just a checkup, oh, how are you feeling? It's kind of like a breath of relief for them, that they have this available to them. And I truly think that's a good idea, and that should be, it could be considered in the future. So, yeah.
Yeah, and to add on to that, a lot of doctors' offices, when they give you that paper, have you had this or this in the past 6 months, they have started asking questions related to mental health. But I think if they really want the real answer from the child, they should ask them one-on-one without the parent being in the room, because I feel like if the parent is in the room, they would feel pressured to hide their true struggles.
And then last question, I think, yeah.
Yeah. I just want to make a comment on what Marwa just said. Well, no, go ahead.
So you guys have done the research. You've seen the problem. You know how to present that problem to other people. What would the ideal action be? What would be the ideal accumulation of your work?
Well, I think just, we had a slide dedicated to schools and the resources that they could allocate. I truly do believe that schools are the most primary thing we should allocate all of our research to, because again, that's where the people are, that's where teens are most of their day. And, there's sometimes there's trust issues with, parents, or there's not a good home environment. And I know that our school, we have a personal therapist. We actually have one right there at the back table. Yeah, so we have them. I'm sorry. But yeah, so it's kind of a lot easier to talk about it because it's right there at school. You don't have to go out of your way out of school, and it's even free. But not all schools are like that. Not all school districts have that same amount of funding or those same amount of help. And so I think if we further try to push that along, I think school could really be, the front running. It really needs to be allocated the most support, in my opinion. I don't know. You guys have any other comments you want to say?
Yeah, I really want to add on to what you said there, Tylen. I think I agree with everything you just said. But really, the biggest thing we can do to combat the mental health crisis in Monterey is simply spread awareness of it. If we can have teachers in classes or school board advisors talking about issues and letting kids know that they're not alone. It's something everyone goes through, especially with the academic stresses or the athletic stresses of high school. Just letting people know that other people are experiencing the same symptoms and they're not alone or weird for having mental health issues. That would be huge to increasing the positivity we see around the peninsula.
Okay, well, I think that about wraps it up, right?
Yeah.
All right, thank you guys so much.
Let's hear it, please. Give these guys a huge. You can stand up. Yes.
Thank you.
You can stand. Yes. Thank you.